Taylor's a huge fan too.
Taylor who?
Who? Is that some guy?
The future Taylor Kelsey. You heard it here first, guys. Huge news drop. Travis Kelsey's going to propose on the Speech Guys.
Michael Schaefer, Ross Johnson, Matt Schultz, and Landon Fry are all here.
It's free.
I've been back and I'm just gonna say it. I've been thinking it for 10 minutes. I don't want a podcast scared.
Oh yeah.
Ashes. Now I've seen the road.
Pregnancy is a beautiful thing. Pregnancy is a gift.
Oh, there are stories to tell.
What kind of paint sticks to asteroids? Like, if you don't prime your wall.
Afraid some days, but the road will lead us to a better place.
We are called to emerge from that default setting of self-involvement.
Okay. A 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 3.
Down.
Welcome back.
Down.
Welcome back to the Speech Guys. It's our final speech from the Old West. Boy, we've had Sister Blandina. We've had Meriwether Lewis and his melancholy. We got, who else? Ross, who do you do?
Rooster Cogburn.
John Wayne.
Oh, yeah, Rooster Cogburn.
John Wayne.
The Western Potpourri.
Yeah.
His buddies. And Landon's going to bring us home here with a speech by Blackhawk, Chief Blackhawk. And a couple of other supplementary speeches to the sentiment, the vibe, the thoughts, the insights that the Indian nations might offer us here. So, without further ado, Landon.
Yes, but first, a land acknowledgement of those that came before. I do know my own home area a little better. It's lores and mounds and stories of the tribes that settled the land before. The topic of our speech tonight is of a Sauk warrior, Chief Blackhawk, the prior civilization that concluded before at least for the land that I call home, was transitioned in the 1819 Treaty of Edwardsville. Prior to that, a little Potawatomi village had existed here. The Kaskaskia before them with their Grand Village of Illinois near Utica. Prior to them, the Illiniwek Confederation, which had been the 16th century. Going back, the time of the primary Cahokia Mounds in my neck of the woods, they called them the Oneida, from 900 to about 1500. And then pretty early on in this area, one of the earliest named settlements I know of, the Havana Hopewell, whose mound at the center of town dates to 200 BC. And it sits right next to the community pool. There's a pavilion at the top of it. In the 1980s, a gentleman had the hypothesis that odd hill right by the river in a pretty symmetrical form probably was an Indian mound. They called in the archaeologists in the 80s, dug a little bit, found quite a bit on a few scoops, bones and otherwise, and confirmed that, yeah, that's a mound, and it's a pretty old one at that. And so the proper way for kind of integrating culture is as we've got our land acknowledgments here. So that's mine. We'll again start off with Chief Black Hawk, probably the most notorious chief. I think when we look at speeches of the First Nations, we've had our Discover Cowboys and our Explorers. Tecumseh surrendered early. We've already done, if you really scroll back into the podcast history, we did look at Chief Red Jacket, who more surrendered in the 1700s and really talked about contrasting theologies of the First Nations with Christianity, which was an interesting listen. But this is a farewell speech, a surrender speech following the Black Hawk War that our own Abraham Lincoln was part of a few skirmishes. But he became a friend right away. He lost well, as we would say, and we'll dive into his words and consider those today. So,
What town was that mound with a pavilion?
Havana, downtown Havana.
Oh,
Oh, dang.
I want to look at that. Why didn't we see that on your tour, you racist?
Because it was one of those where I came over with a fever. I wasn't even at my own hometown camping trip.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Man, that mound is pretty modest. I wouldn't have thought anything of it either.
It is a modest mountain. No, it's totally just a little hot, knobby hill. But yes,
Yeah.
2,000 years, sand tends to settle. So the speech, Chief Black Hawk, a warrior. He grew up right on the bend of the Rock River, meeting the Mississippi in the Quad Cities. We did preserve it. It's a nice 40 to 80 acre patch of land there that should be on our bucket list. We've got to see it. Was pretty cool. He described his favorite, the really productive island on the Mississippi that he talks about in some of his writings, where a lot of fruit trees were, etc., is the Rock Island Arsenal. So the government really, when they did sign the treaty, they wanted that island first, and it's always been a part of the U.S. military. It was a skirmish. The treaties that were signed, the 1804 Treaty of St. Louis was the one that was probably the most famous when you look at this, and that also got a 30-mile band that connected the Illinois River up to Chicago, and they wanted to immediately start working on carving a canal so they wouldn't have to port from Lake Michigan. So that was the first big Illinois treaty that transferred land. A couple other ones occurred, and then there was a revolt. I think one of these speeches says that it was they didn't know what they were signing and wanted it back, so there was a war there. So we'll get into it. Farewell from Black Hawk. Farewell from Chief Black Hawk. You have taken me prisoner with all my warriors. I am much grieved, for I expected, if I did not defeat you, to hold out much longer and give you more trouble before I surrendered. The sun rose dim on us in the morning, and at night the sun sank. That was the last sun that shone on Black Hawk. He's now a prisoner of white men. They will do with him as they wish. But he can stand torture and is not afraid of death. He's no coward. Black Hawk is an Indian who is bad as the white men, could not live in our nation. He would be put to death and eaten by the wolves. The white men are bad schoolmasters. They carry false looks and deal in false actions. They smile in the face of the poor Indian to cheat him. They shake them by the hand to gain their confidence, to make them drunk, to deceive them, and ruin our wives. They poisoned us by their touch. We are not safe. We lived in danger. We were becoming like them, hypocrites and liars, adulterers, lazy drones, all talkers and no workers. The heart of Black Hawk swelled high in his bosom when he led his warriors to battle. He is satisfied. He will go to the world of spirits contented. He's done his duty. His father will meet him there and commend him. Black Hawk is a true Indian. Farewell, my nation. Black Hawk tried to save you and avenge your wrongs. He drank the blood of some of the whites. He has been taken prisoner, and his plans are stopped. He can do no more. He is near the end. His sun is setting, and he will rise no more. Farewell to Black Hawk. I do think a little bit of grammatical context. He spoke this, I think, as a native tongue, and there were translators, and so I think referring him to himself in the third person was basically the way the translation came through, probably the way they spoke as well. So you guys had some good comments, some follow-up speeches that Black Hawk gave in the 5 to 6 years prior. Round the horn, first comments on the speech and other points of interest and takeaways, quotes.
Can I just, there's one part that I really liked that
keep rolling
you
it.
didn't
Yeah. Read it.
I might,
Read it. Yep.
I might just throw that out there because I think that's meaningful. But
yeah,
the white men do not scalp the head, but they do worse. They poison the heart. It is not pure with them. His countrymen will not be scalped, but they will in a few years become like the white men, so that you can't trust them. And there must be in the white settlements nearly as many officers as men to take care of them and keep them in order. Yeah, I think that just kind of cuts to the heart of, just his experience. And I think every culture has strengths and weaknesses. And I think he kind of cuts to the heart of a lot of ours, just this sort of impure, legalistic thing, that ends up being at times less just than just kind of something less orderly maybe, but also kind of reminds me of the Apology of Socrates in that it says something to the effect of like death. It's like if you're being, I'd rather be chased than by death than evil or something like that, because evil flies faster than death. Basically, like evil will kill you in a more substantial way. Doing evil will kill you in a more substantial way than death will. So captures a little bit of that, right? So is it worse to scalp someone or is it worse to poison their heart? I think valid question.
Yeah.
Like I remarked, I'm a little bit confused by sort of the orientation of that sentence. His countrymen will not be scalped.
So he's always
blame the rest of that.
I think he's always referring himself in the third person. Yeah. So I think his countrymen, his is Black Hawk's countrymen won't be scalped anymore, but they will in a few years become like the white men. So you can't trust them.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was
and I think you could even take that as like, let's say there is a white man who is kind of maintains some sense of purity or goodness. But like even the good ones, just give them time, they're going to, just this sort of toxic aspect of their culture will destroy them, and make them less trustworthy. And
yeah, I mean, what stuck out to me about the speech was just the poetry of it. It's one thing. It's one thing to be poetic when you're in showy, if you will, when you've won and you're excited about something. You're building up a certain legacy behind everything. And this, obviously, there is no material, there's no earthly legacy, and he's being sort of darkly poetic for its own sake, and that's I think a really admirable thing. The bullets flew like birds in the air and whizzed by our ears like the wind through the trees in the winter. Oh man,
just confronting.
Great job to the translators.
New technology. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It would be hard to translate.
The sun rose dim on us in the morning, and at night it sunk in a dark cloud and looked like a ball of fire. Man, that's just great
When you
metaphor for what he was.
Yeah. When you do, I
It's
think
great.
one of you made a comment that you noticed that there was an autobiography, and I don't know, it's a couple hundred pages. I think it's at least 100 pages of his stuff as well as like other speeches by other people around him. But it almost all reads like that, like very short, rich words, almost like 100 pages of just poetry, the way he talks. And even as you guys read a couple of these lines here, the way they always represent Native Americans, Indians in movies is like they all do always, the English translation comes across as like poetic. So I don't know, it's consistent across a couple of different forms of always being really good at relating events or situations to natural elements almost.
Yeah. Yeah, and about the autobiography thing, like I'm almost ashamed I didn't know. Well, one, on it, I mean, full disclosure, I couldn't have told you what part of the country Chief Blackhawk was from. I might have guessed the Midwest because of the Chicago Blackhawks. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that should have been like a huge part of our education. Like this is a local. This is. I mean, the ground you walked on very well could have been the ground he walked on. Type of thing.
Matt, I'll put you on the spot here. I think maybe pick out your favorite line or two from the speech 6 years later.
Oh, sure.
And I think you also found out about his DC visit. If you want to share a point or two there.
Sure. So, let's see.
If you don't know about the visit, I can share that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is. What my understanding is that basically after he was captured, he and a few other chiefs. I don't know if that title applies to all of them. Whatever, important people in the Black Hawk Wars were taken on, I guess, a tour of sorts. Their portraits were taken. Their life stories were written down. His in his own words. But after that, when he returned back to Iowa, he was, I guess he stayed with an attorney legislator guy for a period of time. And there were some comments that he, well, I'll just read some of this. So his name was Jeremiah Smith, was the Iowa attorney legislator who stayed with Black Hawk, lived with them for a period of time. So he wrote, I roomed with Black Hawk for weeks and observed him carefully under all circumstances. He was uniformly kind and polite, especially at the table, but often silent, abstracted, and melancholy. He presented the noble spectacle of a warrior chief, conquered and disgraced, with his tribe by his conquerors, but resigned to his fate, and covered with the scars of many battles, in the spirit of true heroism, breaking bread with and enjoying the hospitality of his destroyers. I think that kind of paints just very respectful picture. But with that whole tour, I guess I just think that's such an interesting phenomena that so many enemies you wouldn't necessarily be like, hey, let me learn from you. You know what I mean? Like most of the time it's like, this is an enemy and like, forget you. Like, let's take what we can from you, I'm almost like the United States is acknowledging that there is something owed to them, even as we were taking their land. Maybe acknowledgement of the moral ambiguity of that situation. And I don't know. It's just an interesting thing to consider.
Yep.
Well, were we gonna read that text from right below that?
Yeah. No, you're right. I got
any
distracted.
line there. Yeah.
All right, so this is from Chief Blackhawk on July 4th, 1838, at Fort Madison, which I believe is in Iowa.
Yep.
It has pleased the Great Spirit that I am here today. I have eaten with my white friends. The earth is our mother. We are now on it, with the Great Spirit above us. It is good. I hope we are all friends here. A few winters ago, I was fighting against you. I did wrong, perhaps, but that is the past. It is buried. Let it be forgotten. Rock River was a beautiful country. I liked my towns, my cornfields, and the home of my people. I fought for it. It is now yours. Keep it as we did. It will produce you good crops. I thank the Great Spirit that I am now friendly with my white brethren. We are here together. We have eaten together. We are friends. It is his wish and mine. I thank you for your friendship. I was once a great warrior. I am now poor. Keokuk has been the cause of my present situation, but I do not attach blame to him. I am now old. I have looked upon the Mississippi since I have been a child. I love the great river. I have dwelt upon its banks from the time I was an infant. I look upon it now. I shake hands with you, and as it is my wish, I hope you are my friends. There you have it.
Yeah, he had some little sparring with Keokuk. I couldn't find it in the autobiography, but he kind of blamed something on him, which is odd. I had to Google Fort Madison. It is on the Mississippi River. It must have been kind of where he settled in Iowa, and just 10 miles down the river is Keokuk, Iowa. So they all right around. It's basically right across the river from Nauvoo, if you're wondering. Ross, any initial takes on the word spoke?
But it's towards the end when he said, "The heart of Blackhawk swelled high in his bosom when he led his warriors to battle. He is satisfied. He will go to the world of spirits contented. He has done his duty. His father will meet him there and commend him." Like, just kind of, I think maybe, the second one Matt just read from, I feel like drew it out more, but almost just a sense that he didn't seem bitter or angry. And I think that we might talk about it more as we move into things. I think that's maybe I don't want to say the norm, but kind of an understandable sentiment that I'm sure a lot of people have that have been, had lands taken or been conquered or whatnot, and kind of bitterness towards the conqueror. And he just didn't seem to harbor any of that. I mean, that's two separate speeches where I felt like it was a similar thing.
One particular thing, while we're talking about Blackhawk still, I don't know. There was a war. This DC tour, they did round up several other chiefs. I think they were considered prisoners and basically probably treated as such in their forced East Coast tour. And the point of that was basically to show them the great buildings that had been built, like the full scale of the civilization on the East Coast that was behind their frontier battles, to almost make sure it's like you rose up once, look at all that we have going on that will be, coming to a countryside near you soon, and we would prefer if you didn't rise up again, was I think the point of their tour. But it is curious that it's not like we did the same thing to the South in the Civil War. It's like once the battle's over, it's like guns down, let's peaceably. It's not like they chased them to the ends of the earth. The Trail of Tears would probably be a counterpoint to that. But is there nuance there that is to be appreciated? Or
nuance of whether we chase them to the ends of the earth or not, or what?
I don't know. I think when I think of war and civilizations clashing, usually you wouldn't find the chief of the other side, so accommodated or even alive 6 years later, breaking bread with them. I think history has a lot of examples where that is the case, and maybe war is a temporary skirmish where at the end of it, it is usually peaceable. You can find points for both sides.
I think that
Go ahead.
I think the difference, though, with Confederacy is it's not like Robert E. Lee. Well, I guess Robert E. Lee sort of was, but like Jefferson Davis, I mean, he wasn't just hanging out with Ulysses S. Grant afterwards.
That is true. Yeah, they weren't hunted down, but they were not welcome back.
Yeah.
Which we did. He couldn't. Black Hawk could not go back to his favorite island because it was a military base. So, same thing applies. But it does feel like he at least forgave the white man. I would propose there is another contemporary of Chief Black Hawk is Chief Sitting Bull. His skirmish with Colonel Miles was not recorded. It was not written down, but it was fictionalized in a movie. Would it be worth moving on to that part?
I think we should take a listen, actually, because I found that dialogue.
We are transitioning.
Here we go.
We're transitioning a little bit. Any last words for Chief Black Hawk before we listen to this?
I think it's fine. We can transition and then integrate.
Okay.
Transition, then integrate.
Right. Here we go.
Sitting Bull requested this council. We await his words.
Take your soldiers out of here. They scare the game away.
Very well, sir. Tell me then, how far away should I take my men?
You must take them out of our lands.
What precisely are your lands?
These are the lands where my people lived before you whites first came.
I don't understand. We whites were not your first enemies. Why don't you demand back the land in Minnesota where the Chippewa and others forced you from years before?
The Black Hills are sacred land given to my people by Wakantonka.
Not very convenient to cloak your claims in spiritualism. And what would you say to the Mormons and others who believe that their God has given to them Indian lands in the West?
I would say they should listen to Wakantonka.
No matter what your legends say, you didn't sprout from the plains like the spring grasses, and you didn't coalesce out of the ether. You came out of the Minnesota woodlands, armed to the teeth, and set upon your fellow man. You massacred the Kiowa, the Omaha, the Ponca, the Oto, and the Pawnee without mercy. And yet you claim the Black Hills as a private preserve bequeathed to you by the Great Spirit.
And who gave us the guns and powder to kill our enemies? And who traded weapons to the Chippewa and others who drove us from our home?
Chief Sitting Bull, the proposition that you were a peaceable people before the appearance of the white man is the most fanciful legend of all. You were killing each other for hundreds of moons before the first white stepped foot on this continent. You conquered those tribes, lusting for their game and their lands, just as we have now conquered you for no less noble a cause.
This is your story of my people.
This is the truth, not legend.
This was apparently a TV movie with J.K. Simmons. You can never go wrong with J.K. Simmons unless it's the Tomorrow War. It's obviously what typical in a lot of filmmaking is. At least these days. Obviously, the other extreme in the past of just making the white people the bad guys and the Indians the good guys, and maybe that is the overall arc of the film. But at least in this particular scene, it's the sparring back and forth of this white general or colonel Colonel Miles. Who is, very deftly able to sort of undermine Chief Sitting Bull's position, because Chief Sitting Bull is making, of course, these claims that, South Dakota is theirs from God or their creator. And Colonel Miles is saying, you guys were just as bad as the white people back home in Minnesota. And I'm sure that was mostly true, because some Indian tribes were profoundly violent and what's the word? I don't know, monopolistic, I suppose, in terms of territory. It's human nature, no matter what color your skin is. So I found that just really an interesting. It'd be an interesting, so you could sort of say, like, maybe we're sort of trying to get at this direction in our conversation here. It's just the overall commentary of that again, complex portrayal of human nature, where we have Chief Blackhawk here, who just demonstrated these, as far as we can tell from these speeches, just some extraordinary demonstration of virtue and character, compared to tribes who did perform human sacrifice on the other end of the spectrum, to this just interesting, very tit for tat sort of attitude, behavior of Chief Sitting Bull's tribe. So was it oppression or occupation or guns, germs, or steel?
I do think it makes, like, I don't know. I feel like in my head, and maybe I'm wrong in thinking this, but I feel like typically when I think of, and I can't point to exactly like what, at what age I was or where you learned about what, but I just think when I remember or think through, growing up or hearing about, the West and Indians and stuff, I feel like it was typically very sympathetic towards the end, like Native Americans, and just, white people just took their land. And I do think that this, I like you said, it's kind of a fictionalized meeting. So, but I think it at least gives some, it's just an interesting kind of way to think about it as, okay, everybody, like, on both sides, there's good and bad, obviously, but even just kind of the struggle itself is maybe a little more.
Okay, Trump, please.
What?
Good and bad, both sides, quoting Charlottesville.
Oh, well,
good people.
Both sides.
But yeah, so I just think that it at least gives you, like, pause to think about, okay, and not that you'll come to the conclusion that, then it was fine what they did, but I think it's just interesting to think through this. The world has always been kind of messed up. It made me think about a little bit when we talked about Israel and the Hamas attacks back in that October, like when you went through the list of all the people that have occupied, modern day Israel. Remember that? We left out the Hittites, I think, somehow.
Right. Yep.
Okay. I think where it gets a little bit weak then is just kind of like, but then you have to, like, look at the result of what happened too. So, like, in, if I don't know what tribe was there before Sitting Bull's tribe, but I'm sure that they were at least somewhat similar to, like, their culture and lifestyle and stuff was somewhat similar. So I didn't seem so much like, okay, some people had to move lands, but it didn't seem so much like, but their whole life was, like, changed or annihilated, where it seems like that would be more the case, from the after white people kind of started taking over, all the native lands. So I feel like in that way, Miles' breakdown of, we're just the next conqueror that you were last time, it does not seem to hold up as well.
I think that sort of connects well with the direction, or just, potential trajectory for the next set of thoughts. Is like, why compared to the, Matt had the list there of other groups of people who conquer another.
I think that was
why
Landon.
is
Yeah.
like, why is this the the legacy that has captured the Western imagination, if you will. In imagination, obviously not in the pod. It occupies the Western mind.
Yeah.
The Western moral mind is occupied by it. Yeah, in the modern age.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think what Ross is saying is true. It's like, yeah, culture is like, yeah, European, American, white culture as it mostly is today here. Yeah, it does look a lot different too. Like, how much does race play with it? It's like, I made the reference, I've been watching Downton Abbey because that's free on Prime right now. Watching it again, I should say. I've watched it twice. And yeah, you got Tom, the Irish revolutionary, and he uses this different language about the English occupying Ireland, all these different things. But obviously, an Irish person looks basically the same as a British person.
Yeah.
And people don't think anymore. I'm sure if you live there, it's somewhat more of a thing still. But yeah, you look basically the same. And so I think race is one aspect of things. It does make this moral reality more poignant, more acute. And I'll throw in one other thing of why this occupies the moral mind now more than other. I mean, I would say an aspect, an element of it as well is climate change, because there is this added weight of like, oh, look what all those white people done driving around our Hummers, and this wouldn't be happening either if Native Americans were still living as they were. So yeah, I think those are some of the reasons that it's okay. Actually, I'll add one more.
Was that a plug for The Revenant? Did you just throw The Revenant in there, like the the Leo movie, which
I
was
only sort of saw it once. I wish I could.
It was early settlers overtaking native tribe skirmishes, but there was an element of a climate narrative built into it.
I don't remember that part of the movie. It was a good movie. I should rewatch it.
It wasn't easily a part of the movie.
I watched it
Reviews
once.
said that.
Yeah. But I think one other element that might be interesting to talk about too, of just why this occupies the moral mind. And again, I'm not saying that in some derogatory way. I'm just objective observation here. Would be because I think that people obviously wouldn't say this today, but in the same way that wokeism has, because atheism in the 2010s sort of evacuated the mainstream culture of religion, and then atheism just sort of went away, and now atheists don't really exist anymore. And then wokeism sort of made that new space because people like religion. That is, people are made for religion, no matter what it is. And I think that an aspect of any religion is leveraging your guilt in a useful way that manifests a better person. So this is I think this is the guilt serum of the left, because because there's a certain opportunity to grow from it. So
there was two clarifying insights there. I had never heard.
I think that's
I had never heard someone so correctly say that. Yeah, if you rewound the clock to when we were in college, it was atheism versus Christians, and you don't hear much about nobody cares about Hitchens or Dawkins anymore as much. I don't know. Maybe they do, but that was very 10 years ago, and it has been filled with this new thing that does have more of a guilt complex. Super insightful.
I also think there's a a dynamic of, I mean, certainly a recency and locality are two big things. Recent, like this was the biggest, most recent land takeover or land transfer. If you want to, be generous with your language, but so certainly recency element. I think the locality, just obviously this happening in America. America's the kind of media epicenter of Western civilization at this point. Media / political epicenter, maybe. But the other thing I think technology and just the timing of this happening with the Industrial Revolution, or kind of immediately before. So like what was maybe started with this era, kind of the Chief Black Hawk era white men, to just like describe them broadly. It's like as if you did something, but then the people after you just made it totally immortal and like permanent, in the form of the Industrial Revolution, right? So you might have settlers in Illinois in 1840, right, shortly after this happened, who could conceivably live a life that a Native American would be like, okay, like it's not my culture, it's not what I wanted, but I can still worship the Great Spirit in a cabin instead of a tent or whatever dwellings they had.
Right.
I could, I'm still going to be outside a lot. I'm still going to be very tethered to the seasons. I'm still going to farm. I'm still going to hunt. And like you could conceivably live a life that's similar-ish, right? Maybe like not what you'd like, but similar. But then 40 years later, that's like way different. 80 years later, it's unrecognizable. By the time you get to 1920 or, roughly 80 years after this happened, you've got streets, you've got the early iteration of cars. Maybe that'd be a little early, but like, life is super, super different. So I feel like just the timing in relation to the Industrial Revolution has a big role to play here too. That makes it so, makes it seem more violent and permanent than perhaps it was initially. I imagine like the Viking Normans conquering France and England. It's not like they just had TVs 80 years later and now they're absorbed in this mass media thing that won't let them leave,
So two framing contexts here on the Industrial Revolution comment. So we just read two speeches from Black Hawk, 32 surrender, 38 reconciliation. That that little video we listened to, the audio of Sitting Bull, was a potential speech that happened at Wounded Knee, which was an event in 1890, still 60 years later. So, the Trail of Tears was 30s, 40s. Yep. Northern Plains was still working it out. And by 1890, the Industrial Revolution is in full swing in America, and we're still negotiating with the last leaders there. So we did beat Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, all the other legends, Geronimo, etc. 1890, full scale, every town in America is scaling up technologies and transitioning there. Let's fast forward a generation. It's 1920. These chiefs have been defeated. America is now a full swing. We're very rich. We just won World War I. What is the best way to honor?
Now you sound like Trump.
What is the best way? Like, they were the civilization that came before. How do we best honor them as early 20th century pioneers, institution builders? You see where I'm going here?
Yep. I see it.
Where am I going?
I'm going long.
Where am I going here, boys?
I think there's only one way to honor them, I believe. Maybe they can be a symbol of our.
Is that the Wabanzi Valley High
traditions
School
of
fight
our-
song? Is that what I just heard?
Should we make them a symbol of our most cherished institutions?
It would be really funny if we waited like 10 years and then started convincing people that this is a really good idea. And then it makes a comeback.
So spell it out a little bit. Chief Illini Lick, of course, the Illini, Fighting Illini mascot.
I think, yeah.
And
Yep, go ahead.
it was the final dance of the Chief. Shortly, it was my senior year of high school. These other guys' junior year of high school. And we were never there. We were never there for it. Just as just brief little first things on this. I remember not really caring going to U of I. I was well aware there was gonna be no more Chief dancing, and I didn't honestly care one way or the other. To a certain extent, I still don't. It's pretty partly just because of my feelings towards those kinds of sports in general that have a mascot. I've just never cared at all. I mean, I have a certain respect and appreciation for the idea of it. But yeah, that's my first thoughts on the Chief. I had never even seen the Chief. I did watch the video of him doing his last dance today. And I honestly felt it was a little corny. I was expecting something more impressive. Oh wow. But I mean, I could do that with a training session or two. Just figuring out
Honestly, I thought the same, Mike. I was like, okay. Yeah. I feel like you should.
Right. Yeah.
We should what, Matt? We should
What?
Know,
just
take
do better.
Stand.
Just do better. Just do better. Let's have a better dance. I don't know. I feel like I've seen way better dances than that. I don't know.
But you've seen people just running around in circles before.
I mean,
I don't. Too, yeah, I think but... I think the relation to speeches we read, that time frame I just laid out. The Chief was started, I think 1927 might have been the first dance. I think the the regalia, excuse me, I just downgraded the nature of the clothes. The regalia, I think, was given to us by the Sioux and not the Peoria or the Illini or the original Illinois tribes. And I mean, reading this now, it's like the Sioux were part of that Plains crew that was literally just defeated 30 years prior, which is kind of a fascinating short amount of turnaround. I mean, that'd be like conquering some people in 1990 and then turning them into a full mascot at an institution today or even 5 years ago. That to me, that's an impressive to make the symbolism of either high schools or colleges, or I mean, half the towns in Illinois and Wisconsin are named for the words that were spoken by the natives. If we were trying to erase their history and completely conquer them, I don't think we would have integrated them in such a way that we did. I mean, I even looked it up, kind of AI'd it, and I remember looking at a map of every logo in Illinois for every high school mascot, and over 10% of the 700 schools, 90 out of 700 schools in Illinois, have Indian-related mascots still. And Matt, you've got some personal names of even your recently built schools that honor those tribes. So I think maybe the bigger question is still the nature of it's seems like we have honored them, but certainly with the chief being canceled in 2007 and the dance no longer being prohibited, like where is it, racist versus appropriation versus a proper respect, and those lines seem to be ever moving.
And yeah, just kind of, I didn't hear what you said earlier a second ago, or at first, but just a second ago, talking about, in a way, I feel like that's the argument for those type of things, is we're kind of honoring these people that came before. So it's supposed to be seen in a positive light. But I also think you kind of have to look at like the context and how they're operating, So it's like, yeah, we name buildings after people to honor them. But then, if it's in the midst of a sporting event that's ultimately meaningless to the people that came before, and everyone's just there for the event, and it's a fun, silly thing they do, yeah, I think it can take away a little bit from it makes it harder to sell that we're just honoring the people, I guess, if that makes sense. But
what is this link?
I would say
posted?
we do.
Who just
so yeah.
just
So
threw
this is
that
what
in
I was.
there?
So I just threw that there. Apparently, Illinois this was back in April. I guess the House of Representatives passed a bill that would ban Native American mascots in high schools, and it sounds like they would require them to phase out by 2030. The way the bill is written. Currently, it hasn't passed the Senate yet, so it'd still need to pass the state Senate. But that could affect a lot of high schools in Illinois. But I mean, I would say, in terms of we're not naming buildings after that. I don't know, we're naming entire towns, Milwaukee. There was naming state parks, Shabana State Park, right after Chief Shabona, who is, I don't know, he was mentioned in kind of Blackhawks dealings. Peoria, the city of Peoria is named after the Peoria. My high school. So Landon made a brief reference there. So the high school, the first high school in my district was named Wabanzi Valley. I think it was built in 1975. And they're the Warriors, Wabanzi Valley Warriors, and it was interesting. So I want to say around 2000, 2005 or so, that's when they added this giant mural. This mural wasn't there until, roughly 2005, I would guess. But it's just and I put a link to it if you look at my notes there. But if you just look up Wabanzi Valley High School mural, it's just like a warrior with a shield doing this kind of triumphant pose, looking up at the sky, and it's cool background, whatever. It's a really cool looking mural. Anyway, and it's still there to my knowledge. So somehow that has escaped the, I don't know, the woke whitewashing of Native American culture, but then, so Wabanzi Valley, the high school I went to is called Nequa Valley. Nequa was the son of Wabanzi. I tried to find some more historical information on him. There wasn't as much. Wabanzi was a contemporary of Blackhawks. Anyway,
does feel like there's
those are buildings, schools, learning institutions that are. It's not like the Native American representation is not limited to sporting events by any means. Although, yeah, I don't know. I think it seems uniquely appropriate in that there's this really impressive group of people. Are you going to name your team something impressive, or are you going to name your team the Midgets, or something else?
It does seem like naming the school or the title or the place is a different thing in this calculus of morality than the mascot.
That's more what I was trying to say. Was just I think that in some ways I feel like you can name lots after them in an honorary way. That was more my point, was just at what point, in what context or setting are you using it? So schools versus mascot. Yeah, at some point it seems like there's going to be a difference where it switches from honoring to almost playful, and I don't know at what point does it actually draw.
Seems offending if it's playful.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the house in April. I mean, that was effectively what my letter to the editor was responding to regarding the midget.
Was
Because
that
that was all
included
I
in
think
that
wrapped
bill?
up in the. I think so because
Oh,
I wrote the letter in
interesting.
April,
Huh.
so it was all like the time. But yeah, for clarification, yes, I am a Freeburg Midget alumni. That can never be changed. And I mean, there are I think, some good parallels here that I think provide some insight on the topic, and that I think in the letter I've sent, I did not include some of these points, but interestingly, when we were in high school, we were the midgets, except for one team at Freeburg High School. You want to guess what team were not the midgets? What sport?
Cheerleaders.
Interesting.
The midgets.
No.
Trying to think of what sport is mostly
The
short
football team.
Your football team was the midgets.
Well, what were they called? Football team.
They were the Blue Rage.
The Blue Rage.
Lame.
The Blue Rage.
Blue Rage. And then in the hockey, once we got hockey, they were called the Blue Crush. And yeah, I mean, I think I remember, I don't know, it would come up in conversation occasionally, like, hey, why aren't you guys like the Mitch? Like, you guys too good for us or something? And it's like, Lord knows, I don't remember the exact words, but there was just definitely like a certain vibe of like, oh yeah, we're too cool for that, or like we're better than that. Like there's like an absence of good pride in in the midget, and as I explained, maybe I'll read my article for the post-credit scene, but now, if I'm explaining the significance of the midget, and again, I mean, I think this doesn't really correlate as tightly to Native Americans, but no, I think there are certain parallels, right?
Yeah.
Where a midget or a little person, obviously physical strength is not going to be their attribute that wins them a basketball game or a cross country race. Rather, it's this more subtle, persistent, invisible, power and strength within you in order to excel. Right? That's a much more meaningful and more important quality to learn to leverage than just your physical strength. I think as far as like Native Americans go, I mean, I think the interesting parallel there is that, especially in our modern age, is that they didn't win in an earthly sense, right? And yet we still have a certain like romance and celebration of these different aspects of Native American culture that are alluring and inspiring, and that feels like that's what's celebrated when one selects them as a mascot. And I think, again, similarly with the Freeburg midget, when you say we're not going to use these things as a mascot anymore, you're canceling the very best qualities of those who were, frequently violently tossed aside. You're not celebrating the good things about that. And with the Freeburg midget, by kicking that aside, it's this decision by some big government in a place far away, and it as I remarked in the letter, it sort of ironically shows that the big guy does always win when decisions like this are made by people far off who don't care about your community or anything like that.
That's the most poignant line of your argument.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm selling Freeburg midget merchandise here, Speech Guys only, branded with the Speech Guy logo.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think? Well, so I just want to play with this one step further. Then, so not necessarily disagree with anything you just said by any means, but like just kind of keep tossing around in my head. So, what do you think would be a response to like someone who I don't know the appropriate terms, like an actual midget, but like if they were to say, okay, like I see what you're saying, so it's not like I'm going to get like fired up, but at the same time, like you're kind of using my life as a tool for you, like, yeah, like, you know, you're trying to. Yeah, you're trying to have this lesson or have this figure, in your case, the midget, or, you could say if you had to pick some good quality about the Native Americans, it's like you're trying to take something good away from what they did and like apply it here, whether that's the midget, it has to be all heart, can't just rely on physical strength or, other, you can, I'm sure that people have maybe reference positive qualities about Native Americans, but like at the same time, you're using what I actually have to do or live through just to not make a point, but I don't know if I'm clearly asking my question or not.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're getting at. I'm not sure if there is any. It's sort of a matter of, well, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a little bit of semantics there and matter of attitude about the thing. And I mean, people aren't being used. I mean, it's a play on language. Maybe a nice sort of segue. What do we remember growing up about just our perceptions of Native Americans, like how, whether it's school or state parks, just general like vibe you had in your head?
I might have even mentioned this in the Sister Blandina one, because I know she had some pretty harsh comments against just speaking out against how Native Americans were being treated by white men. But definitely as a kid, I always thought the Indians were way cooler. I think the most profound childhood expression of this was in the Lincoln Log set I had. There were Native American figurines that were all either red or orange or yellow. And then the cowboy figurines were all either like blue or white, or I think it was blue, white, and gray were all the cowboy figurines.
Yeah.
And they're just like the little plastic ones, maybe 2 inches tall or so. Probably, a little less than that. But I always had the Indians win because I thought the cowboys were cheating because they had guns and the Indians had bows and arrows. And I always thought it was just way cooler to be really good with a bow than with a gun. So I always had the Native Americans win, or the Indians, as I called it back then, before it became enlightened.
Which we should.
But yeah,
that's a good point. How does everyone feel about the word Indian versus Native American?
I heard, believe it or not, I don't remember where I read this, but and it was some place like NPR, like that American Indian was the more acceptable term. I don't know. Whatever.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, we can even I mean, Black Hawk called himself an Indian. That was like the name they gave them 400 years ago, and so they heard it in English. And to take away that word now is oddly one thing that clarified it for me. I was driving or walking through Manhattan a couple years ago, and this is post tear down a lot of statues and rename a lot of things. And the museum in downtown Manhattan is still called it is called the American Indian Museum, but it's like carved in stone. It's been up there forever. And they didn't change that. They're even like, it was written everywhere. So I feel like if we really needed to go away from that Indian term, that would be a place that would have deleted it by now. So, but I often don't say American, so maybe that's wrong. First Nations is the new term, which does sound kind of cool. Ross, any Illiopolis lore?
Illiopolis in particular, no. I kind of wish I knew more, honestly, now that we're kind of asking the question about like local history. I'm jealous of your Havana research and history you found. As far as like sentiment growing up or what we learned and whatnot, yeah, I was definitely also probably partial to now I don't know what word to say. I'm like nervous. I'm going to say Indians.
That's what I wanted to do. I want to make everyone sweat.
Kind of on like, I mean, as a kid, I guess maybe just similar to Matt. Don't want to say the same thing. It just seemed way cooler. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just because of all the movies we watched and stuff. But like, it just like, I picture this like really cool Indian hunter guy with a bow, like creeping in the grass, and then some like just incompetent white soldier that just happened to have a gun. So he like had a gun, so he might win.
Yeah. In addition to the Havana Rockwell Mound just across the river, I mean, I think we've got Illinois' best and biggest Indian museum. It's called Dixon Mounds State Museum. So, I mean, I started going to that once a year when I was like 5. And yeah, they dug it up. A farmer was plowing his field in the 60s and turned over some bones. And before they knew it, there were just mounds and burial sites everywhere. A couple of them were primarily skull-skinned women and children, so not a great look for the Oneida. Oneida buried some bodies there along the river 700-800 years ago.
A lot of them were white people, you said? The bodies?
Women and children.
Oh.
But a lot of lore and just like the land, the rivers, the way that they talk about it. It's like, yeah, there's been people here for a long time documented, and just cool to feel a part of that locally.
I do think there's something cool with like, and I think Mike, you might have put a comment on it on Matt's question about should we read this autobiography and as part of our like education curriculum, but like I do feel like I would feel more like interested in it or tied to like local, like almost feeling a part of the history of a place, if that makes sense. So like I feel tied to living in Central Illinois because that's where I've spent all my life. So I would feel, as opposed to like, oh, that's an Indian culture and I'm a white culture. I feel like I would feel like connected to any cultures that existed in Central Illinois before I was here, simply by the fact that we live in the same place. Yeah, so I don't know. That is, I don't know. I feel like I should do better at knowing the local history, but yeah, just kind of bounced off Landon's knowledge there of the Havana area. That probably would be something we should have learned more about.
So you're pro land acknowledgement statement.
Yes. I feel like we're all terrified right now to be talking. Just say yes or
I'm
no.
not.
Ross, since you're so bold, do you think we should think they should bring back the Chief Wahoo hats for the Cleveland Indians? I feel like
say
that's
yes
the
or no. I'm going to say no. Just going to say no.
Okay. I feel like of all the mascot racism things, that's probably the best case. You should get rid of that. You know, you guys know what I'm talking about? The Chief Wahoo hats.
Yeah, I have a
Yep.
friend from college who's Indian, and he always wore a Chiefs Indian hat as basically like he just leaned into it and was like he was Indian from the other continent and not a Native American.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, his baseball caps were always Indian hats.
That's funny.
And he
That's
would
really
be the
funny.
first to say dots, not feathers.
That's good.
One interesting, I know we've talked about mascots a lot, and I know earlier I feel like I maybe was a little bit negative on the mascot idea. Something that I read your Reddit forum you posted, Landon, about people talking about the chief mascot. Yeah, maybe that's just I'm so conflicted, I guess. But like earlier, I feel like I was more leaning towards like it probably just goes too far. But then I read through all those comments, and I kind of like just laughed in my head a little bit because like pretty much the overarching argument was it's just a drunk white guy dancing around. Like that was like
about
I feel like
Chief?
about 50%. Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
really? I didn't
did you
read
read
all
through
of
them?
them. I read through a couple. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'll just link it. They thought it was a drunk white
Like I just
guy.
feel like I like that was the overall sentiment. It just was pretty much people saying this is just a drunk white person thing, and I don't want to watch a white guy dance around in clothes. Which the reason I found that interesting is because like obviously we lived with the guy that was the chief, who like was actually Native American.
He didn't even really drink. Yeah.
Right. So I got just an interesting thing. It's like I don't.
Wait, was the guy you lived with the last chief?
He was the first chief
like
who
one of
wasn't. He was the first chief who wasn't
allowed to dance.
Yeah.
Okay, who's kind of the incognito?
Who like actually was like? I mean, his dad was like I think 100% like Native American, and he was like super proud of it and helped him out and stuff. So like they present like and this might sound bad. He's the most Indian guy that I know by blood.
Yeah.
And he was very like proud of it and like supported it. So then the reason I thought it was an interesting tidbit, I read through all those Reddit comments. I was like, pretty much everyone was just saying, I don't want to watch a white guy dance around. And I was like, you've got a white guy complaining about a Native American guy doing a dance, calling him a white guy dancing around. You know what I mean? It's just like a funny thing. It's like you are literally doing.
I don't feel like we've done justice to what happened to their way of life.
Okay.
Was it guns, germs, steel, oppression, occupation? And then we can do final bill.
All right. Do you have first thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what I think is a useful, and I mean, this is a useful exercise for a lot of different moral hypotheticals. You imagine, I know I've brought this up on old podcasts before, but just how much of an issue it was with just the notion of property. In obviously the old world law, there was property, there was lines, and it's like Native American tribes clearly had that. They had a certain conception of property, right? Oh, this is Sioux land, this is Lakota land. Well, that's the same tribe, I think. This one tribe's land, this is another tribe's land. Blah, blah, blah. So it's like that notion was there, but it was just not. It was not the same, and like how many people can appreciate that kind of nuance. And unfortunately, I mean, especially as our political drama demonstrates today, not nuance is what wins. You know, the shorter version of history, or the more concise version of things, is what tends to win the day, unfortunately. So yeah, it was all those things. It was racism, guns, germs, steel.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of everything.
I think one question I always come back to in so many different ways. I mean, it was two vastly different stages of civilization clashing, and all of it's true. I think that the most contentious or interesting thread I try to figure or ponder is like, what aspect of, to me, I think what propelled the West from tribal to industrial was some element, like Christianity was a part of it. What elements of Christianity would have made that much of a difference? And I don't think I have it on the tip of my tongue at the moment, but you know.
But why is that true? Because I mean, that's an interesting thought, but I don't know that is necessarily true, because like in Africa, I mean, Christianity is seemingly thriving in a way it hasn't before, and I doubt that it's necessarily following like only urban pathways. So there's one thought, and
that's fair. That's a fair point.
Yeah, I unpack that a little more.
Well,
why?
Well, I think Rome became Christianized in 300, and most all of the West's advancements flow from a Christendom that ruled it ruled
Rome
until the French Revolution, right?
Yeah.
And so something about Christianity added up over a millennia in a way that not having it for a millennia still made you tribal.
Sure. I'm really conflicted, because on one hand, I mean, part of me is inclined to just seeing the ordering nature that Christianity has had on my life and the lives of a number of people. It does tend to make lives more ordered, disciplined, oriented toward the good, what have you, certainly on a personal level. But at the same time, I could also see, I think there is compelling arguments about just Europe having a unique concoction of resources, domesticable animals, and things like that it just happened to be the place that was best suited to make the biggest first leap, right? And
maybe,
and could God in his providence know that was going to happen and be like, hey, let's have Christianity, let's have my preferred religion thrive here, because in my providence, I want it to have a good launching pad, but I suppose you could say that, I mean, China was arguably way more advanced than Europe was. I don't know, let's just go back to like 1000 BC or something. I know there's some, I don't know, I've just heard a bunch of things about how advanced China was way back in the day. And I'm sure that, but like Christianity has never thrived in China. Well, I don't know. You guys hear they had fireworks before everyone else could,
fireworks and
light a fire. They had fireworks. Everyone else was just doing campfire. I don't know.
Gunpowder.
Yeah, gunpowder.
They built a wall. Trump still can't build a wall.
You guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, and they never had Christianity. But at the same time, like if you look at kind of how Asia has developed, it's been this sort of raucous thing where it's kind of fraught with, it seems like a lot of dictatorship. And I don't know. I mean, it's just I don't know. I'd be really curious on the other side of this world just to kind of see what the grand plan is and was, with just different things. Cause I could see there being a level of arrogance on my part that wants Christianity to be the thing that made Europe great. But it could just be God's providence knew that Europe had a good setup and like picked Europe to be the launching pad for that.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Yeah.
Do you have Landon? Do you have anything else on your point? Like that started this? Like you said, you feel like it is part of like the industrial push and what it happened. Like when you first started talking about it.
Well,
it sounded like you were saying it was part of it.
Yeah, I think there has to be elements that, given Christendom was 100% at least socially and culturally Christian for a millennia, and no other place was, and that the fruit, the offspring of that culture is still what basically dominates the world. What has allowed it to thrive, and it does seem to be one of the bigger differences between tribal versus civilization, though that is also not true because the Roman Empire was an empire before, as was Greece and the Mongols, etc. So I just kick it around a lot in my head.
So I feel like if we have time for it, then the question would be like, how, if that's true, then how can you spread that without, I mean, I think we kind of talked, you guys mentioned on the outline, but like, how does that then move forward without resulting in just annihilation of a culture?
I think we need to talk about annihilating culture. I mean, I think it's a complicated thing. I mean, you could say that America's culture has been annihilated by commercialism, right? You might have had these different like cultural things, kind of these small, or whether it's a small town or a big town, but these sort of local nuances that existed, and these sorts of like American things, whether it was like folk music or whether it was just like swing dancing is a uniquely American phenomena, right? That's like but like no one knows how to swing dance anymore. You can talk about cultural annihilation, not in a number of ways, beyond just like white people taking over the Native Americans. I think, so I think that's one element of it. Just the fact that it happens fast and violent versus slow and almost like this, I don't know, like if a witch waves her wand and turns you into a pig immediately, like that's bad. But if she waves her wand, nothing happens. But over the next 10 years, you slowly turn into a pig. It's like, that's also really bad. You know what I mean? So if you, yeah, I think cultural annihilation, if you want to call it that, it can happen in a lot of ways. And I mean, I imagine there have been cultural annihilation, kind of slow, steady versions of that within different Native American tribes, right? Like one tribe maybe devolves into whatever, some sort of wayward thing and eventually pays for it. And then another tribe takes over, right? So there's that. And then I guess the other side of things is like sometimes at least certain aspects of cultures, if not entire cultures, probably deserve annihilation in some way, shape, or form. Like it's not like I feel like the idea that every culture is equal is, I don't know, I think is just kind of bogus. Because if that were the case, then modern Western civilization would also be equal. to, but that seems to be what everyone's okay with critiquing, right? So, yeah, I think that's just a untenable position. Was it wrong to judge the Aztecs for human sacrifice and oppressing the surrounding tribes of Mexico? Like, probably not. I think there's some valid criticism of the Aztecs, and that's how Cortez kind of gathered. Most of the people who fought against the Aztecs weren't Spaniards. They were other Mexican tribes who hated the Aztecs. And
right.
Anyway, I think there's just different things like that. Like Black Hawk points out the deceptive legalism as a broken aspect of European culture, and he's right. From as far as I can tell, like drawing lines on a map because you have the power to do so, and then sneakily twisting people's arms into conniving their land from them. Like, that's not a good thing. Right.
Yeah.
And that happens in European culture. And anyway,
for sure.
Yeah. Like, so culture annihilation, I don't know, is inherently a bad thing. It depends on what culture it is, depends on what aspects of that culture are being annihilated. And obviously there's like varying degrees of like intentionality with that. Like this teaching a native culture, a Native American group that are hunter-gatherers, just teaching them agriculture so they can better feed their family. That's going to drastically change their culture. Is that good or bad? I don't know. I'm sure some Native American groups welcomed that. Others might not. I don't know. But
yeah, I think things like that would be more to the point, or, the way making, as some component of evangelization, thinking that making this tribe wear like white people clothes is like the more virtuous choice. I think those are more the things, except your most extremist thinkers, quote unquote, are the things that people have in mind with the issues with the sort of synonymousness of evangelization and evangelization of actual faith and evangelization of relatively incidental cultural things, right? And me and my mom went to a museum at SLU recently, and it just depends on the person, depends on the order as well. But apparently the Jesuits were particularly good at just identifying the elements, a particular region or set of tribes, and, finding ways to, integrate them with Christianity, with the Catholic faith. And, I think that, if only there'd been more of that, I think that would be an interesting, way for how Christianity might look today in the United States. I think an interesting parallel is actually Mexico, where it's like, I know there is some distinction between a Mexican who is more like Native American and a Mexican who is more actually Spanish, but they do just they have just integrated more, right? Like it's their sort of a shared culture there, versus the United States, it's white people and non-white people. Again, that's not necessarily speaking directly to religion, but I think there is certain.
That's a great example. That was my one. I've only been to Mexico once, more of resorts, but we went to some Maya stuff, and he kept referring to the natives as the ancients, which I thought was an interesting way. And generally racially, they all look the same. I'm sure that some are more native and some are more Spanish. I think that Brazil is, we think we're racist in America, but Brazil has like really odd hierarchies with how white or black or native you are, and just like everyone who's 1 degree outside of yours is like the opposite of you. So it's really bad there. Mexico, I think it emerged and became somewhat of melting pot. And I've always heard that it's like the Spanish when they conquered. This is overgeneralization, which I don't mind, but I'm sure it misses some things. It's like the Spanish came for like God and gold, but once they couldn't find the gold, it was mostly God. So they like intermarried a ton. The French went to trade, and so they would try to get the resources out, trade. They never conquered land. They didn't intermarry, and they kind of all fizzled out except for Canada. And then the English came for land, and obviously that set up. But it was an interesting with this. Basically, everybody except for U.S. and Canada, all the Spanish prevalent parts of Americas did just like merge the cultures. The languages are obviously kept along with the faiths and the traditions in a way that just doesn't exist in the U.S., which, I think if your mission is first, again, separate from the gold, like God in a mission versus like trade or land, which they never give up on, is really different.
Yeah, I mean, one last thought. I know we're itching for the final bell. It's like, man, it's definitely just, especially again in our modern age, it's just surprising how evil people can be while still. I remember sharing when I was teaching, because a lot of young kids, high school kids in this case, will say things like, I just try to be a good person. And I think that a kid especially, but I think this goes for adults too, they confuse geniality with goodness. Like, oh yeah, I smile, have a nice time with friends, da, da, da. And similarly, I say, it's not many opportunities I ever say it. It's like, don't confuse niceness with goodness. It's nice to be nice. Hopefully, can be nice as often as you can.
Sure.
But because there's famous photos of Hitler, just smile on his face, hanging out with his buds, right? And the and then just to tie something I read recently in the Wall Street Journal. It was one of the editorials about France taking in one of these Palestinian grad students who like publicly posted on her Twitter account a speech by Hitler of how all of the Jews should be killed, right? Again, like I bet she seems like a fun person. She'd probably seem like a fun person at a bar to talk to. Just judging by her space in life, being a grad student in France. Oh, that's interesting. And to tie it into what we're talking about here with Native Americans, the West, pioneers, it's like, I'm sure a lot of those white people who scalped Indians went home and did admirable things as husbands and wives, as weird as that sounds. And you realize how easy it is for everyone to compartmentalize and compartmentalize. Like I also, to quote myself before, if you don't think you would ever join a cult, you will join a cult. If you don't ever think you would do the darkest possible thing, well, if the opportunity arises, you may very well do that.
Yeah.
Final bell.
Ding, 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 ding. All your strength, all your power, all your love.
What round is it? It's 15. One more round. There's no stopping this now. This is our round. Don't stop it now. To start, we don't stop. All your strength, all your power, all your love, everything you've got. This is your whole life here. Do it now.
And we're back. Final bell question. Landon, what do we got?
We've hit discoverers, explorers, cowboys, and Indians. This is the quad about the Old West. Which of those four personas most defines and contributes to to the narrative imagination that so captivates us about the Old West?
I think I'm ready. I gotta stand by my boys and girl, Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea, or Birdwoman, as some call her. I mean, you get the geographical coverage of East Coast to West Coast. There is no doubt of where they were. There's that sense of adventure, the mystery. It seemed as if those scenes of visionary enchantment would never have an end, as Meriwether Lewis wrote. And you see this model of Indian American relations that is still talked about today as a woman, an Indian woman, and black man voted along with the other white men for where they're going to spend that winter of 1805. They were at the mercy of the tribe of Wakuis at one point as they came out of the Bitterroot Mountains famished. And yeah, you see some of the best of Americans of all different colors.
So which of the four personas did you pick?
Explorers.
Well, Meriwether Lewis, and yeah, Explorers.
Wherein each speech guy chooses his own speech's persona.
There would be some interesting, I was thinking now, like some interesting commentary. I'm not a Star Trek fan, but just Star Trek. And I remember, like, my dad's a big Star Trek fan, so I remember us watching, well, I guess he used to be, because, yeah, we used to watch a fair amount growing up. But I remember Jean-Luc Picard and his diplomacy, his dealings with aliens. He's like, no, we're as an exploratory ship. We're not here to conquer or something like, that was always a big distinction. He'd still kick ass anyway, of course. But
I think I got to go with the Indian. So if we think each speech, the Indian's been an important player for each and every one, right? Sister Blandina, Indians are on their doorstep threatening to avenge the death of their comrade. Lewis and Clark, frequent interactions with natives. Cowboys, I suppose the speeches we chose didn't directly, but I mean every Western movie involved Indians in some way, shape, or form. And of course, this speech. I feel like that's just the common thread, always present, always a dynamic that you had to account for, had to reckon with. I feel like that is maybe more the West than anything else.
I'm gonna go Cowboys. Apparently, we're just all picking our speeches.
Matt,
I feel like
went
I have
out.
to.
Matt went out.
I went with
That's
Landon's
true.
speech. Yeah.
I guess I feel like they're the most distinct. Like there were Indians not in the West, the East.
Sure,
the East
true.
Coast had plenty of Indians, and like discoverers, explorers is such like you could find that anywhere. But it seems like if you think of a cowboy, you cannot. There's no possible way to have a cowboy that's not in the Old West. So something about that seems so uniquely tied together that
strong argument. I'll give you kudos there. Way to.
You guys are just so racist. You don't even know there's Indians not in the West. Gosh.
Are you done, Ross?
Yeah. Stop me.
I gotta go Indian too. I think both the discoverers, explorers, and cowboys all had to confront and deal with the nature of the Indian. And I think they were here, calling upon, I'll end with a word from Wendell Berry. The first sentence of Unsettling of America is a critique of the discoverer and the explorer and the cowboy. It's the best first sentence of any book. One of the peculiarities of the white race's presence in America is how little attention has been applied to it. So I think
do that again.
One of the peculiarities of the white race's presence.
No, Do the whole thing. Did you just read?
I'm reading one sentence. This is
one
This is
sentence.
one
that's
sentence.
fine.
This is the opening line of Wendell Berry's most seminal nonfiction work, written in 1977.
Okay.
Sentence 1. One of the peculiarities of the white race's presence in America is how little intention has been applied to it. Which I do think is a critique of the discoverer, the explorer, and the cowboy, but a compliment to those who have settled it before.
What's the
It's
name
called
of that
The
book?
Unsettling of America, 1977. That's how we let it off. Sentence 1, very strongest first sentence in all of literature.
Well, yeah, we got a new quad to come up with, huh?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good end of the first quad or second quad of the year.
This is our last quad, right? So end of 2025.
Yeah, we got to pick a good one.
We're
in 2025 strong.
Quarter away through the century.
Yeah.
Speeches about the future.
Speeches for the next quarter century.
Speeches
in the last quarter century for the next quarter century. That's too much.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
We need a timeline on quad. So if I'm going to pick the first speech.
Yeah. You got to help a guy out.
We'll get it soon. Sounds good.
All right. Next time we cast, I'll have another kid. So that's pretty cool.
Holy smokes. That's wild.
Next Friday is the due date.
A week from tomorrow.
Number 5.
Mm-hmm. Very excited. Kind of ready to get this thing done.
Well, thanks for drinking.
And thinking.
With us.
And thinking. Damn it. Do it again.
Just say be safe out there.
Be safe out there.
Hey, cue the music, will you? One last time.
Dead ends come and go. Look toward the horizon. Up ahead you'll find a peace of mind, relief from the trying. I have burned a bridge, wrecked in a ditch, had to ask forgiveness. Dead ends come and go. Look toward the horizon. Oh, there are stories to tell. The times we grew and the times we fell. Oh, I've been afraid some days, but the road will lead us to a better place. Road will lead us to a better place.
Last month, an Illinois General Assembly bill was voted 9-4 by our House Education Policy Committee in favor of striking midgets from our high school's namesake. I graduated from there in the early 2000s. Occasionally at cross-country and track meets, competing schools' athletes taunted us for our mascot, pointing out its seemingly obvious inadequacies as a point of the moral strength our athletic events were about to demand. In return, we frequently mock their dime a dozen names. Eagles, Hornets, Jaguars. These symbols meant nothing. Exactly what their performance meant to us. Our football and hockey teams were known as the Blue Rage and Blue Crush. Them, we, the cross-country team in particular, I must admit, also taunted for their dismissiveness of the strength that we knew our hearts could summon beneath the blue and gray fibers of the word midgets stitched into our uniforms. Asked to explain my pride years later to non-alumni, I put it this way. Midgets, or little people, clearly do not have a physical advantage. Therefore, a little person must surely require a more vital, subtle, enduring source of strength that resides in each of our hearts. With that in mind, we strained towards 16-minute finishes in 3-mile cross-country races, shot over and spiked into competitors at the state basketball and volleyball tournaments in Peoria, and outsmarted other scholastics and televised academic events in Carbondale. We didn't even have a physical mascot, likely because we took such pride for the name itself that we didn't feel like we needed one. I'm sympathetic to those who complain about our name. Doubtlessly, midget has been hurled as an epithet at millions of little people since it first appeared in English in the late 1800s. Unfortunately, cruel idiots never seem to disappear. I'm afraid it's ultimately memories of their dumb hatred that manages to taint the language of every generation. To strike midgets from Freeburg signage would become a vindicating memory to many little people. A sense of justice, hard fought for, would accompany the painful memories where they were ignored or minimized or dismissed in schools, doctors' offices, and workplaces. Ironically, it would also be a testament to the unfailing power of those in some faraway political space that the, quote, big people, in a sense, do always win. Everyone has hurts that can feel deeply invisible to the rest of the world, no matter whether this is because of original sin or just an improbably cruel universe. We all hurt deeply, often quietly, and can identify with the vindication to point the finger at something, whether or not that is just. Whatever becomes of our mascot, I hope what continues to be celebrated is this. The physical strength need not be one's strongest asset, but rather the virtue and grace of the soul and heart that lies within each of us. That was a letter to the editor written by myself and an April edition of the Freeburg Tribune newspaper.